Hey guys, so I wasn't sure if I was going to do any writing videos on this channel, but I was just feeling really strongly about this today, so I thought I'd make one on it. So here we go. What you need to know before you write a scene. There's a lot of chat on the internet about pantsers versus plotters, and everyone's different and everyone has a different amount that they like to plan before they start writing, and I'm here to tell you that pantsing is bullshit. I'm going to touch on this idea of invisible work quite a lot, and I'll come back to it at the end. Here's the thing, you're going to have to do that work at some point. If you want to write a story that is more than just you splurging down words on a page for the fun of it, you're going to have to do the work to get it up to the standard that you want at some point. Now you can do this before, you can do it during, or you can do it after. I've done it after, and I'm telling you, it's not that fun. So you can try and do it during. This is going to be the slowest way to write a story ever. You're going to spend so much time just staring at the page, staring at the blankness of the words that you have not written because you don't know what the fuck to write. It doesn't give you a chance to really make your writing shine, and you're so busy thinking about big, macro, plot, character, setting things that you're not going to be able to really focus on the craft of making your writing sound and read good. Read well. Can you tell I'm a writer? You can do minimal planning first and then read your draft and realise that you're a piece of shit and you should burn in hell, and then go through the painful, painstaking process of redrafting and revising, which I'm telling you is tough. I wrote the first draft of State of Flux in 2009 for NaNoWriMo, and I had absolutely no plan, and I had to spend 4 years revising it because I was really passionate about that story, but I had no idea what I was doing. It wasn't even a story in the first draft, and parts of that revision were really painful, and I wish that I had just stopped and taken stock and planned a bit in advance and saved myself all that fucking agony. Another problem with doing it after is that now when you go back to fix one scene, that's going to have ripple effects on all the rest of it, and you're going to have to revise all the rest of it anyway. Stories are progressive. Each scene should be building upon the foundation of the last, and so if your first scene sucks, your second scene is going to suck. Pretty soon your whole story is going to suck, because you didn't fucking plan anything. If you're planning what you're writing in advance, you can see how what you write in this scene is going to affect what you write in later scenes, and everyone's just going to be much happier. It basically means that you don't have to rewrite anything. Your revisions, if you've planned your scenes properly, will basically just be style editing, which is so much less painful. So what the fuck should you be planning for a scene? What do you need to build? And I like to distinguish between building a scene and writing a scene because they're two different processes. So I'm going to use a Holly Lyle definition of a scene. I found it really helpful, even though I disagree with her on some things. On this, she is so right, and so it's much easier for me to just use her concepts. She boils it down to 5 elements. I boil it down to 4 usually, because I tend to combine conflict and antagonist. Basically, you've got a protagonist, and this does not mean you have a person, like someone who has blue hair and blonde eyes. Let's go with it. It doesn't matter what they look like, it doesn't matter if they have a physical form. What you need to write a scene is a mind, a personality, a force that wants something. Setting is usually quite simple. It's the place where your scene takes place. I think something really important about setting is that you should be excited to write about it. It should contribute to, maybe not always the theme, but it should contribute to the mood, the atmosphere. It might even contribute some conflict and stuff. And then you're going to need conflict, and you're going to need a twist. I like to roll conflict and antagonist into one a lot of the time because I feel like it is a bit more streamlined. It can be useful to define your antagonist separately if they are a person, and then the conflict would maybe be the thing that they're doing to screw with your protagonist. A lot of the time for me, my antagonist is a situation or something other than a person, so I don't always define them. The twist is a slightly strange word for a really specific definition that Holly Lyle has, but it's basically the thing that changes by the end of the scene, and not necessarily at the end of the scene. You should never have a character beginning sort of at 0 and having a problem and then solving the problem over the scene and then being reset to 0 completely. They should have learned something, they should have discovered something new about themselves, about someone else, or something else has happened which is otherwise going to change their life, change their situation, change what they're going to do next. The 5th element for a scene is you have to care about all that shit. You have to care about all of it. This is probably the most important thing that I wish I'd known back in the day, because I had so many scenes that I felt like just had to be in there because certain things had to happen because of things that happened later on, and I didn't build a whole scene out of that thing that had to happen. I slogged my way through writing scenes that I didn't like, which then later had to get ripped apart and rebuilt from the bottom anyway. You need to care about each and every one of these elements: protagonist, conflict, setting, and twist. You're not magically just going to start caring once you started writing, those from experience. So what you need to do is work on any of those elements that are a bit weak, which are a bit uninteresting, and get them up to par, and then you can start writing. A quick tip about conflict: if you are racking your brain trying to think of an interesting problem or conflict to come up for your character in the scene, and you're coming up with nothing, a lot of the time the problem isn't conflict, it's the character. It basically means that you're not interested enough in what they want or why they want it to care about whether they get it or not. So definitely go back, maybe go through their life experiences, think about why they want what they want and what is interesting about that. So how the fuck do you build a scene? Always. Basically, you should do whatever gets you results. The absolute worst thing that you can do is sit down and stare at the page and will an answer to come for you, or to wait for inspiration. You need to be doing active problem solving. You need to be actively working on those with your human problem solving machine, this whole area. So here are some ways that I like to build my scenes. Clustering. I have an entire notebook which is just for clustering and working, and I think this is really important to have this kind of delineation between, like, oh, look at all this shit that I've splurged from my brain, and then, oh, look at all this organised shit which I've organised. It's kind of like in maths exams, how you get a sheet of paper for working and then you get a different sheet of paper for answers. You need both. You need to hone the brain splurges into good things. So I will cluster a problem or a concept or a question, consider different options, and then if I hit an answer, I'll be like, bingo, and sometimes I'll highlight it in here, but I will translate it into either my story codex or my outline. My outline is just these cards here, it's all chapters for you. It can also be helpful to just handwrite things, maybe free write. I like to type because it's really easy to shuffle things around and keep batting things back and forth until you get something you can use. Another thing you can do is speak about it. A lot of people are really self-conscious about yammering on about things to themselves. You know, it's awkward. I don't tend to do this so much in the house. It can be really useful for me to take Alfie out for a walk, head somewhere fairly secluded and quiet, and even just do laps and just chat things out to myself. I cannot tell you how many big story problems I've worked out this way. Something about speaking aloud just gets things flowing in a way that just thinking about things just doesn't do. I also find it really helpful to mull things over with music, especially while I'm walking the dog. Again, I find the movement is really helpful. The worst thing for me to solve a problem is to sit down and just do nothing and be still. I like to put on my story playlist, listen to some music, really get into the zone, think about how this song maybe mirrors or contradicts things that I'm working on. Another great thing you can do is to decide to come up with 5 ideas for an answer to this problem. And this really frees you up to generate stuff that you know that you don't have to use. I like to just type it and number them, and you might come up with nothing that you actually really like, and that's fine, but a lot of the time I find by 5 ideas, or maybe I'll just do another 5, and by 10 ideas, my ideas are becoming a lot more complex. I'm maybe grabbing things from others and mixing them in, and I usually have an answer, have something that I can really work with by the end of it. I think it's really good to let yourself make mistakes, and telling yourself to come up with a certain number of ideas is a really good way to do that. So if you try any or all of these things and you still don't have an answer, or you don't have anything that you like, just rest. Just let it rest for a wee bit, even a couple of hours. Sleep is especially great for letting your mind, like, mull things over while you're not looking and figure out problems for you. Come back to it, try again, maybe try something different, and just keep going until you get what you need. Because if you power on and write the scene anyway, you're just going to have to write it again later, and by then it's going to be much harder because you'll have written a whole ton of shit on top of it. So once you hit something that you're like, yeah, that sounds cool, I really want to use that, compile it into an outline. I like to use scene cards. I actually like to cut mine in half because I feel like having a whole card puts a bit too much pressure on me to do it right, whereas these ones, and I use paper ones as well for stuff I'm really not sure about, I'm not afraid of just tossing them. And then you can start writing. And you'll find it's so much easier to write a scene once you've got this kind of information down and you're actually excited about writing the scene or interested in writing the scene. Things flow just much more smoothly, you know where you're going, you know when you have to stop, and it really gives you the time to focus on making your writing really shine. So big picture, invisible work is work too, and it's important. Expand your definition of writing. Don't feel like if you're sitting down and clustering or scribbling on a page trying to figure things out that you're not writing. There are so many more things that are writing than just physically bashing out new words. You're going to need to do all that brain work anyway. You might as well do it in the working when it's easier. There are story problems too complex to just solve mid-sentence. So why are you trying? Make time for active problem solving.
Aww, that's Mondo.
So that's about it, guys. I wasn't sure I was going to do writing videos on this channel, but it looks like I am now. Thanks, Elf. That's really helpful. What do you find really helps you with problem solving? I would love to hear. Shit's hard, you know. Cool, that's it for me. So, bye! Third stool loop. Just keep saying M. That's... yeah, why not? What are you doing? Is that my mouse? You are the devil! Tiny dog asshole. Just pay down. Let's just keep fucking up. And I say fuck a lot, I think. Where the fuck was I? Why the fuck?